Okay, and we're back.
All
But
right.
yeah, I've had those situations where like the people that you're dealing with, particularly in residential cases, there have been a few times when I didn't find the people I was dealing with to be believable,
Yeah.
or there's something else going on. I would never say that to them because once again, we've got to be very careful about what we do.
Right.
Which brings me to the whole Ryan Buell, Jonathan Zappis thing. I'll tell you this story real quick. What happened is when I was first starting Howling After Dark, I was originally going to be on another network called Going Beyond Radio, and the gentleman who owned that network has his own show on there called Beyond Radio, and it's a paranormal show, much like this one, and like Living Paranormal. And he had he had it set up so that he could take call-ins. And this lady called him and told this horrific story about how she believes that what she had in her home was like an incubus or succubus type spirit, which they do exist, by the way. Um,
Right.
Although they're very hard to prove, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's a
Right.
topic for another show. But uh, she did have something going on in her house, and she was having a problem in her area with getting somebody to come in and take care of this for her. And like one group she mentioned came to her house, and they went in, they set up equipment, and then they went to the bar down the street.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, it was just constant issue after issue after issue, and finally she thinks she sees the light at the end of this particular tunnel, and I don't know if she got a hold of him or he got a hold of her, but
Mm-hmm.
somehow Ryan Buell got involved, from
Yeah.
Paranormal State,
Yeah.
and he's a douchebag for a whole slew of reasons, by the way.
Yeah.
But I
I've heard rumors.
Yeah. But this is the one that really set me off, and this was actually even before the whole thing about him ripping off fans at these convention engagements and stuff happened. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but he went to this woman's home, spent all of like 15 minutes in her house, made her wait outside
Right.
on her front lawn, goes in, investigates for all of 10, 15 minutes, comes out, looks her dead in the eyes, and tells her she's crazy. Now,
Nice.
I'm going to put it exactly the way I put it when I first heard about this and first did this show. I don't give a shit how wealthy you are, or how well known you are, or how famous you are. As a paranormal investigator, you never, ever call a client crazy. I don't care if they answer the door with a fucking tinfoil hat on. You don't do it.
No, you're absolutely right. There's no sense in this. You still have to be a professional. You still have to be caring and concerned for their welfare.
Exactly.
Are you going to run into people that are quote unquote crazy in this field? Absolutely, every
Oh,
day of the week.
for sure.
But you know what? You can help them get the help that they need by
Yeah, you
recommending
can.
counseling to them. And the counseling that you recommend to them is to help them with their problem. But when they get in the hands of a counselor, the counselor might be able to help them with other problems that they have.
Exactly. And if that were where the story ended, that would have been bad enough. But evidently Ryan Buell and Jonathan Zappis, who a lot of people have referred to as the godfather of the paranormal, which I think is total BS, by the way, who's, associated, of course, with the Haunted Collector show.
Right.
Um, he somehow got involved, and I guess him and Ryan Buell, like, know each other. And they, I guess, were sharing information prior to Jonathan Zappis going there, so he already had it in his head that, this lady was crazy. And so he goes to her house, basically does the same thing that Ryan Buell did, but to add insult to injury, has the balls to sit there and look at her in her face, not only tell her that she's crazy, but that he's going to blackball her from getting any further investigations done.
That's insane. For the record, okay, nobody can blackball you from having other investigations done.
No, they can't.
Number two, as investigators, Jay, you and I know each other. We trust each other's opinions on things. We've talked about this, that, and the other thing, certain types of cases. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because you tell me somebody is nuts does not mean that I have the right to go in there with that closed-minded approach. I have to approach it as if I've never dealt with this client, as if I didn't know that they had psychiatric problems, even if they did. And I have to go in with that open mind. I have to give them the benefit of the doubt at least, because they need some type of a closure, you know.
Yeah, and that's exactly, the way I was seeing it, and that's why on my very first Halloween After Dark ever, I called them out on it, and I told them straight up that if I don't get somebody else to go and investigate for this woman, I will go to Pennsylvania and do it my own damn self, and you better hope to God I find out that there's something going on there, because if I do, I'm going to tell the entire world what douchebags you are, and that you didn't do your damn job.
Right.
Because honestly, I'm not afraid of anybody in this field.
Right.
Yeah, they have fame. Yeah, they have money. Yeah, they've been on TV, but they're no better than I am.
No, absolutely. They put their pants on one leg at a time. They still have their human flaws just like the rest of us.
Right. So and I know you're like me. I'm very passionate about this field, and I have no problem pulling somebody's punk card when they mess up.
Oh, yeah. No question. People need to be held accountable for what they do.
Yes, they do. And that's part of the reason why I think that here in the near future, and by near future I mean within probably like 10 years, I think there will come a point when paranormal investigation is recognized as a profession.
Oh, very, very well could be.
Because we are heading in that direction despite all the, burning down plantations and all the other bullshit. Right. We are heading in that direction because of I think that's probably one good thing that came from the TV shows, actually. Yeah. Is because it's become a mainstream thing. It used to be very taboo to even talk about this stuff.
Oh, yeah. And, that is one thing that we do owe to the shows, was bringing this into a positive light and bringing it into a level of popularity. But in all honesty, it really turns out to be a double-bladed dagger because, as we said before, you got the people that act like these douchebags, like, that tell people that they're insane and they're faking the evidence and whatever else.
Oh, yeah.
So even though it did open a door for us, at the same time, it also adds a level of difficulty to it now because there's always that skepticism.
Right.
Is this person just trying to get another show or whatever?
Right. And I think if you're in it, for fame or glory or money, you're in it for the wrong reason.
Absolutely.
Flat out. And that's what I've always tried to tell people. Now, I've been in situations where I've made a little money off of this. Mm-hmm. But it's always been a situation like where we're hosting ghost hunts for somebody else.
Right.
And in return we get, percentage of the profits, whatever. But, like a lot of groups out there, the majority of what we've done is charity.
Oh, yeah. And I know your answer on this, but I'm going to ask it to you anyway. What would you say to a person that contacted you and said, I've got a paranormal team that wants to come out, and they said they can take care of me and help me for only $500.
I would say that's crazy. Don't pay them. I will come out and do it for free.
Thank you very much. I can't stand these groups that feel like that they need to charge to go out and help people. This should not be a living. This should not be a way to make a living, if you know what I mean. This is a way to help people right now, and this is a way also to learn, to educate. And let's be realistic. We usually have fun while we're doing this, even though it is a ton of work. Mm-hmm. I don't trust groups that charge. And
neither do I.
It's different if it's a public event. Like you said, we do it with the Ramsdale House from time to time. We have a night at the Ramsdale. There's a fee to come to that to cover the costs. That's about it. Okay. But you've got these groups that want to sell you stuff and charge you so they can come in and investigate your house, and
Well, that's the other situation too. Is a lot of the places that will charge you, for example, to come ghost hunt. A lot of them I won't even bother with. Like,
yeah,
for example, the Mansfield Reformatory. Everybody knows that place,
hmm
and I agree. It is very, and I actually have kind of a soft spot in my heart for the place. But
right,
I will never ever investigate there again because they charge $80 per person. That's ridiculous. I think there's a lot of
yeah.
overcharging
It is too high.
and stuff like that going on. Whereas like an event like what happened at Glendale Cemetery, it was $10 per person and it's on 28 acres. There were 300 people there and we never ran into anybody.
Right.
And that's how it should be done. It shouldn't cost you an arm and a leg to go ghost hunt. That's ridiculous. Especially when it's not about the money.
And I know that a lot of right now, but I do know that a lot of these places they have to pay their bills, and I understand that they do it as a tourist attraction type thing. But let's keep it at least affordable so that the average everyday person is able to do so. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like 80, 75, $80 per person that's too high. And look, but even from the Mansfield Reformatory, I can somewhat understand it because look at the size of the place.
Right.
You're kind of getting what you're paying for. But then you have other places like Bobby Mackey's, for example. Now, Bobby Mackey's is made famous by Ghost Adventures, and yes, there's definitely stuff going on there. But I'm not going to pay them $100 for only 4 hours worth of investigation time. That is a waste of my time and money.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a significant.
And that's what they charge there. It's $100 for 4 hours.
Now I know the last time that I went to Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, like I said, it's a 22-hour lockdown, and I think it was $55 a person.
Yeah, but look at what you're getting for it.
You're getting 22 hours in a hospital. I mean, there's so many areas to go to it. I think it may have gone up a little bit under the new management, and that's fine if it did, because, like I said, it is a very long time you're in there. But yeah, it was an amazing. It's an amazing location.
Well, it's like Hillview Manor. It's a little bit more money. It's like if you go during the week, it's a little bit less. Like if you're Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, it's like $65 per person.
Right.
But you're locked in there from 7 p.m. at night to 5 a.m. the next morning.
Yeah.
So you're getting your money's worth, especially in that place because it's huge.
Right.
And, if you do it during the week, it's like 50. So it's a little bit more reasonable for what you're getting. But there does seem to be like this trend of overcharging for these places. It's just ridiculous. And like one situation, and I won't name the place, but there is a historical museum, let's say, in Richland County, Ohio, that we were trying to make a deal with. We would host their ghost hunts for them and get a percentage of the profits, yada yada yada. And that ended up not happening. But the main reason why it didn't happen is because they wanted to charge like $20 per person, which I know doesn't sound like a lot when you're talking about ghost hunting, but it was a very small 2-story building. You couldn't have comfortably 20 people in there.
Right. Now, for example, when we go to the Ramsdale House, it's a smaller location. We normally charge $25 per night, but we limit the number that we'll allow in. So we'll limit it to like 10 people.
Right.
And that covers our costs as far as renting the building. That covers our costs for the batteries and things of that nature that we need. And plus, we're there for more than 4 hours. We're there 6, 7, 8 hours. So it's a lot more affordable per hour. Plus, we keep it on a smaller scale. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
That's why it costs a little bit more to do that. If we had 20 people in that place, they wouldn't be able to really do much investigating. It's just too loud.
Yeah, and you would run into everybody, and
Oh, yeah.
and so as a situation that it just isn't realistic,
Oh, yeah.
like I have a very simple formula, and because I have hosted ghost hunts for other people in other locations and stuff, I kind of have this formula in my head, and this is how I like to do it.
Hmm.
I look at the size of the location first.
Oh yeah.
Like if it's a small place, it's not going to be worth more than like maybe $20
Right.
because it's small. There are only so many people you can have in there without everybody bumping into each other, et
Right.
cetera, et cetera. But if it's a bigger location, like we did an investigation, this is actually one of my favorite stories. Uh, I went to Springfield, Ohio, which is basically on the other side of the state.
Hmm.
It's kind of close to like the Indiana border, and I went there and we investigated this place called the Crow Collier Building. By far the largest location I've ever been in.
Hmm.
It was nearly 1 million square feet.
Wow.
It was roughly twice the size of the Mansfield Reformatory,
Right.
and just a little bit bigger than Trans-Allegheny, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with.
Yes, I've actually been to Trans Allegheny.
In other words, we spent like 6 hours investigating there and saw maybe a fourth of the building.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's a big place.
And but one thing that did happen that and this is one of the main things that impressed me about it is me and one of my other investigators, a guy by the name of Danny, were on the third floor, and it's like this big warehouse kind of place, and the third floor is like one of those big open warehouse style rooms that has catwalks around the edges.
Hmm.
And we were actually heading back to base because we had to recharge the batteries in our cameras. And both me and him at the same time see this light anomaly drop from the catwalk onto the floor and go right past us. We both saw it with our naked eyes. And, that impressed me, and I'm like, whoa. And then a little bit later on, there was an orb, and this one I know in my heart of hearts is genuine because it was huge,
Right.
and I saw it with the naked eye, and it was bright as hell. And I was going down this breezeway once again, heading back to home base, and it dropped right in front of me. It was like inches from my face. I could feel the static coming off of it.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, and you have places like that. But, like, if I were to host a ghost hunt there, that is one of the few places I would charge more than $50 for because of its size.
Right.
You could easily have 100 people in there and they would never see each other all night.
Right.
So, I mean, but, that's the only situation I think where you should be set up to make a little money. You know what I mean? Like, you should never charge to do residentials. I certainly don't. In fact, if I charge anything at all, it's gas money.
Yeah. And I just wanted to make you aware, Jay. One of the listeners in the chat room saying they keep our show being broadcast. So I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Oh, sorry, what?
One of the guests in the chat room on the Ghost Wolf Radio site,
Uh huh.
she said that she's not able to hear the live show, only the EVP session show that's playing on the archive.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Yeah, it doesn't with Spreaker. I'm trying to get it set up so that I can do shows like this on Shoutcast and just phase Spreaker out altogether. Um, because sometimes with Spreaker, if you don't refresh the page, it'll go back to its default, which is the EVP show. Um,
Right.
I don't know why it does that, but it's whatever.
But anyway, like we were saying, there's a large cost associated with some of these places. And the bigger places, I can understand it, especially when it's a longer duration of an investigation.
Yeah.
But I don't understand these people that pay 30, 40, 50, 60 bucks to spend the night in a cemetery.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. Especially when a cemetery is a public place, it's easy to get permission to be there.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Key example of that is, and it's probably the most ridiculous thing, is Bobby Mackey's. $100 for 4 hours that's not worth your money.
Mm-mm.
I mean, it takes me longer, like half that time to set up.
Yeah.
With all the cameras and stuff we have, forget about it. Yeah. But anyhow, so one thing I like about your show, by the way, Rob, is that you actually have a co-host.
Yeah.
That's something I'm actually trying to get for my show.
It really helps. You've got two different minds that are working together to try to get information pulled, and
yeah, and you have somebody to play off of. You know what I mean?
It helps the conversation go too. I mean, it really. Jason and I work exceptionally well together. It's probably a lot of us where we've known each other for so long.
Mm-hmm.
He and I are to the point now where we kind of realized that he and I can both take two totally different paths off of the comment that's made by one person. So if like when we interviewed you, you would be talking about something, and I can take that down a road where he wouldn't have even thought to, and vice versa. He can take it down a road I never would have dreamed of. So it does make for a little more of a fluidic show.
Yeah, so if you know anybody, you know what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
anybody
for
interested in a personal reference for the Ghost Wolf J show here on Howling After Dark, make checks payable to... No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, there you go. No, but seriously, that's one thing I've always liked about your show. It's kind of like how you two like play off of each other like that. And I do want that for my show because, well, to be blunt about it, that's one thing I've always lacked, obviously, on the show is by doing it just myself, is I don't have anybody to play off of. Even when we don't have a guest on the show, there are times when I just kind of run out of things to say.
Yeah. It's really, it really helps out a lot. It really does. Plus there's two people to carry the burden of what needs to be done for the show. So it's not like it's all on one person to keep the entire show running, and the one person doesn't have to lecture for the 2-hour time slot. You can pull more people in, and it really just adds a whole new dimension to it, especially with somebody like Jason, he and I have very similar views, but there's enough of a difference that at times it actually pops its head up, and we get into some really, really different types of discussions, just off of our own personal differences of feeling and opinion. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to say one of us is more correct than the other. I mean, at times I've changed his mind, at times he's changed mine. And part of what makes us work so well together is we do have that dynamic. We are able to logically discuss things that, for example, a lot of people would be offended. They would start arguing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The way he and I handle our business with it, though, is it's just plain and simple, us talking about it, and we come to a sustainable understanding because we will listen to each other and we can change each other's minds. So it's important to be open-minded with the co-host you have.
Yeah. And besides, he's my favorite beaner.
Well, there's that. Yeah, I get frustrated enough with him. I'll just finally ask him if he doesn't have some oranges to sell on the side of the road or a lawn. But the funny thing is, I say something like that to Jason. Jason takes absolutely no offense to it because Jason knows that I am not a racist person. I don't actually see him in that light, and he takes it for the humor that it was intended. And I'll talk to him about, I'll kind of joke around with him about his Latino history and his lineage. And he'll pick on me being from West Virginia and talking about me marrying my sister and marrying my cousin and whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's we both know that neither one of us fit the stereotype.
Exactly. And I think I kind of impressed him when I did your show, actually, and I made that rip on him. I don't even remember what I said, but it was pretty funny.
Oh, and he started laughing, man. He instantly
Yeah, he was instantly into it, and he's like, "Oh, damn, here we go again." But yeah, he's a great guy, and he is very level-headed, and his like whole background was in the paranormal alone. I think helps you guys like play off of each other too.
Yeah, we're both long-term investigators, much like you are. I've got a little more. I'm a little longer in the tooth in the field than he is, but we both have similar beliefs, but a slightly different approach. And that I think that's part of what keeps the show so lively as well, is that we both, have a different take on how things can be done. And you know what? From time to time, I'm just saying it adds a special level to it because he can point out something that I never even thought of trying. And I do the same to him. He's like, I never thought of that. We were talking one time about basic equipment and things that you can use in lieu of expensive stuff. And when I mentioned using a compass to detect an electromagnetic field, it had never occurred to him to do that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, but that's just a little trick that I picked up along the way myself. And, he's brought little tidbits of knowledge like that to me as well. So, and actually we all work, he and I work so well together just because of that.
Oh, for sure. And that would be actually make for an interesting show, believe it or not. A show just talking about like all these kind of ghettofied means of investigate modern equipment.
Well, and here's the thing: every one of us are using equipment now that's modified in one way, shape, or form. Let's be realistic. How many pieces of equipment are actually made for this field?
Not very many.
And the point is we're already using equipment. I'd like to call it more of a budget investigator. So you've got a tight budget, you can still investigate. You don't have to have the fancy, expensive $700 stereo, stereo recording digital recorder. You can have a little $20 recorder and it turns good results. So people need to realize that you don't have to have the expensive stuff.
You really don't.
To be realistic, most of this stuff gets trashed as you're using it anyway because you're running around in the dark for starters. It's real easy for them to walk off. It's real easy for them to get lost. There's no point in putting that kind of money into stuff. There's really not.
Well, I have probably couple $1,000 or so dollars worth of equipment, but that's because I like redundancy. But really, all you need to investigate, honestly, is a digital recorder.
That's
like a digital audio recorder. That's really and maybe a camera.
Or a microcassette. You don't even have to do digital. If you've got a microcassette, use the microcassette.
Oh, people have gotten great evidence off those old magnetic tapes.
Yeah, some of the best EVPs we've ever pulled, we actually pulled using a microcassette recorder. It just takes longer to do evidence review because you actually have to play it and then record it while at the full length instead of just doing a digital transfer. But there's no reason that you can't use that type of equipment, and that's kind of the point. You can get by with using things. One of my favorite places to go looking for stuff to be used for investigating is a pawn shop, because you can buy infrared cameras like Sony IR cameras, handy cams. A lot of times they're almost giving them away because they've got them setting on the shelves. So you don't have to go out and buy these expensive things. And don't get me wrong when I say this, Bell and Howell makes an incredible.
Yes, they do.
They're amazing.
I actually have their infrared camera,
right?
And it is amazing. I've never had any issues with it. And then I've got this like little ghetto Spectrum camera, but it works amazing, and they weren't that expensive.
Right. And here's the thing: I went to one of those and I picked up a Sony Handycam with Night Shot. Now they're hard to find now because Night Shot's not even being made anymore. I'm not going to tell people why, but you and I'll talk about it behind the scenes. I paid $40 for it, and it works great. There's no point in spending huge money when you can do something kind of inexpensive like that.
Oh, for sure. And there's even things that you can use to investigate out of like everyday items. Uh, One
Oh yeah.
investigation I did, and just a little story for you. I did an investigation at this location, which I'm not allowed to name, by the way,
Hmm.
for legal issues. But uh,
Sure.
I didn't have an EM meter. I didn't have anything at all to detect fluctuations in electromagnetic energy. So what I did instead is I took a string and tied it around an iron nail,
Hmm. Yeah.
and I would just sit there and hold it like a pendulum,
Right.
and I'd wait until it was steady and see if it moves. And it moved a few times. In fact, one time it almost floated straight out in front of me. So I
Hmm.
know something was there, you know, aside the fact of, what I can see and sense and all that. But, there's all sorts of methods like that you can use. A compass is actually a very good one because it's already um,
Magnetized.
magnetized, and you can visibly see the results. That's how it works. Normally it points north. If it's sitting there spinning around like, a clock dial on, fast forward, something's up.
Oh yeah. Doubt. No doubt. Yeah, but people don't realize everybody talks about how expensive this has to be. No, no, it doesn't have to be. A lot of us make it expensive. And you know what? I fully admit I'm a techno geek. I love the technology. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But at the same time, some of the best equipment that we've got, like I said, are pawn shop specials. So yeah, if it works, it works.
It's like me. Like the one thing I don't have is a thermal.
Yeah.
I don't have a thermal imaging camera. I would love to have one, but I'm not going to pay $2,000 for one piece of equipment.
Now, one of my investigators actually found a device that connects to the iPhone that actually turns it into a thermal
Yes,
imaging,
I
and
was actually going to talk about that.
he has ordered it, so it should be in hopefully in a couple of weeks. So I can actually give you some info on it once we take it out and test it and see how well it works. But
And that
I've
one's only
actually,
like $200, I think, something like
yeah,
that.
it's not that bad. But I've used a thermal imaging camera on an investigation before. Okay, um, unless you're in an open area, you're going to have mixed results because there's a heat reflects worse than light, believe it or not.
Yes, it does.
And on some walls, you're getting close to something. Oh my God, it's terrible.
I've even done this on some of the TV shows where I've totally debunked what they've got on a
Hmm.
thermal because I understand like how the heat reflection works. Because my first experience with thermal imaging was in the army.
Yeah.
Looking through a thermal scope, and I know how it works. Like there are certain surfaces that reflect heat better than a mirror reflects images,
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
and you get false readings like that all the time. Actually, there's a difference. A lot of people don't know this unless they're in construction, but there is actually a big difference between drywall and rock wall.
Yeah.
Drywall doesn't reflect heat. I mean, it reflects it a little bit, but not as well as Rockwall does. Rockwall reflects like a fucking mirror.
Yeah.
It truly does. And any kind of you know uh, heat reading you get on a thermal on a Rockwall, I would just throw it out
Yeah. Pretty much.
because that stuff is ridiculous. But yeah, and I'm not going to pay, like I said, $2,000 for one piece of equipment, which is about what they cost.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
and it's also a unitasker. So I mean, it's not that you can use it for anything else besides what
right?
it's intended to use for. It's not like that have a practical use around the house. You know what I mean?
Like the only reason that thermals even exist, they were originally invented for military, so that you could see, heat patterns at night, yada yada yada. And then they were developed for civilian use for hunting.
Yeah.
They weren't even intended for ghost hunting, and that's kind
Oh,
of the
yeah.
story with a lot of our equipment.
Absolutely. Most EMF meters are based off of tools that are used by electricians.
Yeah,
Same.
and
Yeah.
uh, what's that other one? Digital audio recorders were invented for dictation. They were never intended for use in a paranormal way. It just works that way.
Yeah. Pretty much.
And you don't even need like you said like a expensive version of those. You can get one for like 20, $30 from Walmart.
Yeah, it works well.
I've got one. It cost about 35, and I've had it for years, and I still use it.
Hmm.
And that's the other thing. If you treat your equipment well, it'll last forever.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not adverse to using apps on my phone as long as I know the source. Like I've talked to you, Rob, about some of the apps that I use on my phone. But the reason I use them is because I know the guy who invented them.
Right. And you know
And
what
he's
he's
an
actually
avid
done. So
ghost
yeah.
hunter. He's not going to just make crap, you know.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
even
And
had him on
it's
the
just
show. So
knowing. Yeah, just knowing the person that does it and their intention and the quality that they put into it. You know what I mean?
yeah, exactly. So, uh, and that's the reason why Big Beard Audio is the company that makes these apps. It's his company. Uh, they're really the only ones I trust. I don't trust Ghost Radar or any of that BS because honestly, like especially when it comes to the voices, it's too random, and it's just
Yeah.
generated from a database as opposed to actual live noise. So, but yeah, there's my big pitch for Big Beard Audio. By the way, they
And
should
I'll
be
definitely be looking
sponsoring
into
me.
them as
I
well.
swear they should
Yeah.
sponsor me as much as I talk about.
It's a good thing though, man. When you believe in a product, put it out there. Help them out.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a few. There's not a lot, but there's a few companies that are paranormal based that I would pitch for sure. Like I forget the name of the company, but Gary Galka, who he basically invented the millimeter. A lot of his stuff is wasn't intended for that, but it's awesome. You know,
Yeah.
uh, pretty much anything by Bill Chappell is gold. Because, and here's why I trust Bill Chappell stuff, by the way, and it may be more expensive, especially when it first comes out. But the reason I trust Bill Chappell is because he's a hardcore skeptic.
Right. And that's what you look for in an investigator. You want them to be a skeptic.
Now, I'm a believer, but I investigate like a skeptic.
Right. Well,
I
I call myself the skeptical believer because I do believe that the paranormal's out there, but I'm very skeptical of everything I see, and you have to be effective. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the show. The key to it is to keep an open mind, but look at everything under the magnifying glass.
exactly. And I think if you're not willing to do that or not able to do that, then you probably shouldn't review evidence at all.
I agree.
And if you follow some basic rules, like I said, the three pronged attack, so to speak, of having three different pieces of evidence backing each other up, you can't really go wrong. And it's just that kind of attention to detail is an absolute must in this field, um, and not everybody has that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very sad. But you just have to, when somebody presents me with evidence and they say, I was here and this is what I caught and I took this photo, I just don't have to take all of that with a grain of salt and just look at it as, you know, just look at it as what it is. There's often ways to
Oh
completely
yeah,
and totally describe it all.
particularly with a still camera, I'm very, very picky about this. When I think there is a proper way to take still camera evidence, and that is to take successive shots.
Absolutely.
Take
You
at
have to
least,
do multiple photos.
I would say, take at least 3. Take 2 in the same exact position, and then shift your point of view just slightly, one way or the other, and take a third. That way we can see through photographic evidence the procession of any evidence. Because otherwise I'm just going to throw it out. If it's one single picture, I'm not going to keep it.
Right. Right. You can't because you don't have any frame of reference.
Yeah, you really don't. And
Plus,
it's
if you
always
have
good
the
to be
successive
mindful of
if you
that.
have other photos, if you have the other photos, you can also see if there's a reflective surface or something of that nature that might actually be causing the light anomaly. I mean, or whatever the anomaly may be. And this is, I guess you call it another pro tip. Go back to the location where you took the photograph the next day and take it from the same spot during the daylight hours and see if you can find something in there that could have possibly caused that particular anomaly.
Or even if you can't do it the next day, do it after the investigation when the lights are on.
Right, right. Well, I'm talking especially though for like outdoors, that type of thing. You definitely have to go back the next day. But it gives you a frame of reference, and that's what's important. You have to have that frame of reference so you can look at it with a skeptical eye.
Yeah, and I do that myself. I am a full-on believer. I have to be because I see them. But even with my own evidence, even though I can see and I just took a picture of them, I'm still going to investigate it as a skeptic and be like, okay, well, I'm going to try and debunk this.
Right.
And then when I can't debunk it, I know it stands, the test of scrutiny.
Right.
And
that's the best way.
Yeah, I think everybody should investigate like that. Regardless of their beliefs on it. I'm a full-on believer. Full on. I know about things that probably nobody else does because I can actually see these things.
Right.
And I've talked to you a little bit about this, like Gravelings and stuff, and what they are, in my opinion, et cetera, et cetera. And once again, topic for another show. But
yeah,
Gravelings, by the way, for my listeners, are as far as TV goes, I've only seen one captured on camera one time, and it was a still photograph taken of Nick Groff by Aaron Goodwin. I think they were actually at Mansfield Penitentiary. And there was a little kind of shadow creature behind Nick with glowing orange eyes. That is a Graveling. And in my opinion, they're like sheepdogs for the paranormal world. They kind of keep everything where it's supposed to be. Right. But, yeah. So, we got a little over a minute left. What do you got coming up? What's going on, man?
Well, just going to be out investigating and still trying to spread the good word of the paranormal. Living Paranormal, of course, is growing bigger, badder, and stronger every day.
Oh yeah, tell people where we can tune into that, because I have been guilty of missing that show like time and time again because I always forget.
Sure. We've actually moved away from Blog Talk. We use Blog Talk right now just for the archives that they use, and we actually upload the shows there the day after. But you can find us Sunday nights from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern on livingparanormal.com/live. We have a very good chat room. Some days, of course, as always, is more active than others. But we have a couple of authors scheduled to come up here very soon that have written books into the paranormal, as well as a expert on the different types of equipments we have scheduled to come up. But definitely keep in track. You can also follow us on Facebook at look for facebook.com/Living Paranormal Show. You need to put the word show in there, or you might end up in the land as Jason.
We got about 10 seconds left. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I want to thank you.
Go ahead.
I want to thank you all for tuning in. Tune in next week.